everyone. Happy Saturday. Welcome to the Nina Monique Show. It's Saturday. I'm happy, and I'm happy to be doing this show. Before I begin the show, I want to give a big shout out to Just Leadership USA, who was here on September 1st to talk about the mistreatment of individuals incarcerated in Rikers Island, and the organization is trying to close down Rikers Island. So I want to give a big shout out to them and what they're about and what they're doing. And also I want to give a big shout out to anyone who got caught up in the system, because once you win, it's definitely hard to get out. And this is a topic that I always wanted to cover, because I think for me personally, a lot of people don't want to talk about it. We shy away from it, and we quick to demonize people who are incarcerated without knowing their story. There are people in there who were wrongfully accused of a crime. There are people in there who are in for a petty crime and they can't get out because they can't make bail. And it's just a topic that needs to be talked about, because we see a lot of mass incarceration and we see a lot of people of color who are caught up in the system, and sometimes, most of the time, they don't get to tell their story. So I definitely wanted to cover topics about mass incarceration, being wrongfully accused, and to help me do that today, I have a special guest with me, Mr. AJ Woodson. How are you?
Yes. Hello.
He have a show that come on every Sunday from 6 to 8. People Before Politics.
Absolutely.
Very important, because especially with this climate that we're in now with politics, it's very important to know that we do have a voice and we do have the power to change things, but it's a matter of if we want to change things.
Absolutely.
So I have a special guest today, the Innocence Project, who will be here shortly, and I'll let the Innocence Project talk about what their organization do. And I also have someone named Alan Newton, who will be here, who was wrongfully accused of a crime, and he will be here to tell his story. And I'm definitely looking forward to hearing everything that's going to be going on today. So I want to start off with Mr. AJ.
Yes.
Before the show started, we was talking about how people get wrongfully accused of crimes, and the people who accuse them could pretty much walk away still taken care of. Would you elaborate on some of the projects that you were part of to bring light to the situation of being wrongfully accused and trying to help people get out of prison?
Well, one case we worked on, me and the show is me and my partner Damon K. Jones. We created Black Westchester, the newspaper, the online magazine, and People Before Politics, the radio show. Damon, my partner, is 28 years in corrections, and heads the organization Blacks in Law Enforcement of America. So usually when people are wrongfully, whatever, he's one of the people that get called. So he got the phone call, and I got involved as, you know, with the editor-in-chief of Black Westchester. So it was a young man named Jamal Smythe from Peekskill. He was in Yonkers to pick up a friend. The friend had a bag of drugs. I guess the cops were watching the friend.
Right.
So when he put the bag in the car and he got in the car, I guess the cops swarmed him or whatever. The two police officers, Yonkers police officers, were had a history of falsifying search warrant affidavits, which also led to a raid of a young man, Dario Tanner, on School Street in Yonkers. They had the right apartment, but the wrong name, the person that lived there before him. He went out the window, third floor, landed on his back. They tried to say it was a suicide. The ME would not write off on it because he said in his 20-something years, no one jumps out of a window to commit suicide and lands on their back. He's never seen it. This case brought attention to those officers. So Janet DeFiore, who was the Westchester DA at the time, and had prosecuted several of the cases of these two officers, indicted the officers. Because of that, Jamal Smythe, one of the cases, they started looking at his case. His wife got in touch with Damon. We ran the stories. We had her on the show. We helped them, and he was sentenced for 15 years, and he had served 4, and he was then released. He is now released and has been exonerated of the charges. And what was beautiful, when everybody wanted to interview him, he wouldn't do any interviews until he gave us an exclusive. So that was a beautiful thing. And you can see that Jamal Smythe, blackwestchester.com. If you put his name in, you can see the interview.
Oh,
yeah.
Definitely going to check that out. Thank you for sharing that. We hear a lot of stories, especially right now with everything going on, where people are wrongfully accused of crimes they didn't commit. From you engaging in some of these cases and helping their family, what do you think could be ways that we could bring people to justice, that wrongfully accused individuals who are incarcerated for something they didn't do?
Well, 2 things. One, I think the bad thing is, and first off, let me say, because I have to say this every time, we are not anti-police. There are a lot of police that do their job. They don't. My partner Damon, his wife is a Mount Vernon police detective. So we're not anti-police. We're anti-bad.
Right.
No matter what you do, whether it's government, whether it's police, whatever. Anybody who violates the rights of the people, we're against them.
Right.
So that I want to say, because a lot of people, I had Blue Lives Matter protest against me on social media because they said I'm anti-police. So anyway. It's rare that you see officers get indicted on anything.
Right.
And I believe the only reason that these 2 were indicted was because the DA had to cover her behind because she had prosecuted several of the cases from these 2 officers. So it wasn't about doing the right thing even then.
Right.
And while we have her outside of Westchester now, she is now the head of the Court of Appeals. So when stuff don't go right, she's the one you got to go see now. So I'm not really comfortable with that either. So
that's what make everything hard, because when we see people who are appointed to these high positions, it's hard to get anything done because they could quickly shut it down. And then, in my opinion too, media have a role to play in it, because they relate the stories of what they want to be told to diminish someone's image. And then we come up, I'm not going to say we, but the public come up with ways to just, well, that person deserved what they, received or whatever. And it gets to the point for me where it's emotionally draining.
Absolutely.
How do you not allow things that you see consume your heart with, hating people? Because it's hard, because you see us always fighting. We can't kneel, we can't speak up, we can't protest. Everything always everything always have to be, if you don't like it, go somewhere else, and it shouldn't be that way. How do you stay, sane and away from not liking people for what,
Well, it's very hard, one, and you have to have some form of spirituality, whatever that means to you. I'm not saying I'm a Christian, but that doesn't mean, I got friends that are Muslims. I run with everybody, but you have to have some form of spirituality. One of the things my pastor always used to say when I was in Georgia, because those are the people that every couple that has a divorce problem, everybody that's all they're getting. When people call them, there's a problem.
Right.
I'm that person now with being the editor. But you have to stay prayed up,
right?
Because if you're not, and you have to keep positivity around you. If not, that consumes you, and then you take that into your house,
right?
And it's easy to be jaded,
right?
But what keeps me going is when I hear from people, especially a little old white lady. She's got to be about 80 years old. She's like, "Oh, I love Black Westchester. You keep us informed," and the people tell us how much they helped them, how much we helped them, or how much they informed us, or those are the things that keep me going, especially when my spirit is low.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It keeps me. It reminds me why we're doing this, because we started Black Westchester. We started People Before the Politics because there was a need to change the narrative. We can't depend on other people to tell our stories.
Right.
Whether it's Hollywood, whether it's the media, whether it's the radio, we can't let other people define us.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Agree.
So I know we don't have the reach of the mainstream media, but in our local communities and for those that read us, you know what I'm saying? I try and I walk that balance, because there's a lot of stories I could do, and I could, and I try not to I hold our politicians' feet to the fire, and those who break, violate people's rights. There's a certain way to do it where I attack the issue and not the person.
Right.
You know what
That's
I'm saying?
very important.
As much as I can. I'm human. There's a few times I've gone after people, but
Right.
I mean, I try to attack the issue and not the person, because it's not, it's the issue that we need to attack. One of our problems, and the brother out there, and the thing, we attack each other.
Yes.
We're our own worst enemy. You know what I mean? So it's just like you have to educate people. You have to inform them of their rights. One of the things we did in the 2015, the election going into the mayor for Mount Vernon, I registered 105 young people between the ages of 18 and 24, people that were first-time voters, because they're not included in the voting block that the politicians use, so they're not doing anything. And I told them that. You're never going to get anything if you don't vote. They don't care about you because you don't vote.
Right.
I registered a lot of them.
Right.
And that's what changed the voting block of just the seniors and the regular people that vote. You know what I mean? And even now, what's going on the national level is going to be a lot of people that have stayed home and have been absent from these elections. They're going to make the difference in this midterm election and the 2020 election. But all things with us, all things is all politics is local, so I always bring it back home.
That's great. Voting is very, 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 very important. Although people say it don't change anything, it changes a lot. I'm gonna talk later with you about that.
Absolutely.
I believe my guest, the Innocence Project, is here. Hi.
and while they sit down, I want to thank you for this really cool notebook.
No problem.
I can never have enough books to write in it. So.
No problem. No problem. Thank you so much. I'm going to start off and let you introduce yourself to my listeners, and then we're going to get started with the interview. You could start.
Oh, okay. Hello, my name is Alan Newton. I'm a exoneree from the Innocence Project. I've been home 12 years now after serving 22 years for crimes I did not commit.
I was going to say, I always ask everybody, pull your mic up to you.
Yeah.
It moves.
Okay.
And so you speak right into the mic so we can hear you. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I do this every week.
That's
so.
okay.
Mike's kind of intimidating.
Hi, my name is Amshala Jairam. I'm a state policy advocate with the Innocence Project, so we work on changing the laws.
And I'm Susan Friedman. I'm a staff attorney at the Innocence Project, and so we represent people who are seeking relief from wrongful conviction.
And thank you. I can't thank you enough for being here. This topic is very important to me. And I remember meeting Shonda at the Shonda Smith, who is a communications manager for Innocence Project. I met her at Anthony Graves' book signing release that he did, and just hearing his story, I heard about people being wrongfully accused of crimes and being in prison and not being able to tell their story and get out, and they have to start all over again. And it's hard because, one, you've been away for so long, the world changed.
Definitely.
And you have to come out and get readjusted to everything that's going on. But then you have the public or society that just, well, that's not my issue. Stuff happens and things like that. And I always said there's more to it. It's so much in this world going on that people don't know that I think is very important to talk about. And I'm definitely thankful for you coming in to tell your story.
We appreciate you for having us here, because it's important to be able to tell our story, because like you said, with the change in news cycle every day, it's hard for people to really concentrate on things that really don't affect them personally.
Right, exactly.
So getting this opportunity to tell the story, speaking the young people, going out to the colleges and reminding people, look, this is all of us, because the way I try to express it, even though it don't affect us, because it doesn't involve somebody with you personally, it affects public safety, because when wrongful person is locked up and convicted, the person that commit the crime, the majority of the time, they go on to commit a new crime, unfortunately.
Exactly. I had someone here September 1st from Just Leadership USA, and she was also, her name is Tamika Graham, and she mentioned that. And she also mentioned how a person that's wrongfully accused, now they have to adjust to a lifestyle in prison where if they wasn't criminals when they walked in, now they are criminals because now they have to learn how to survive,
Right.
and because of the things that go on
You classified.
inside. Exactly.
I also used to say you had to make the normal things, the abnormal things, normal now, and you had to adjust to things, and it's the same adjustment, unfortunately, that we have to go through when we come home, because like you said, if you was duly convicted and you come home on parole, the state is obligated to assist you in making that transition easier. But in our cases, one of the things, the state is almost out to get us because they don't want the transition to be easy, because they want to try to say, well, look at this person, even though they was wrongfully convicted, look at them now. They're
Right.
not improving themselves, and so they kind of have a real hands-off policy, and it shows when they actually fight in the civil cases when men and women try to get compensated for them wrongful convictions.
Right, right. We're gonna come back to your story because I have so many questions for you.
Thank you.
I want to go over to my guest from the Innocence Project. Could you say your name one more time? I'm sorry.
Sure, Amshala Jairam.
Thank you. And Susan.
Yes, Susan Friedman.
Yes. Could you tell everyone a little bit more about Innocence Project and how when the organization got started and, you know, the meaning behind it?
Sure. So the Innocence Project was started in 1992, and it was founded by Peter Neufeld and Barry Scheck. And they realized at that time, it was when DNA started to be used in prosecutions. And what they realized is that if DNA can prove that someone committed a crime, it could also prove what they believed, which is that there are wrongfully incarcerated people in prison all across the United States. And so they began this project, and it originally started at Cardozo Law School as a clinic, and it was just 2 professors and a handful of students. And then in 2004 it became an independent nonprofit, although we still have a relationship with Cardozo and run a legal clinic.
Right.
And now we've grown to a staff of, I think we're about around 80 people. And you know, we also are part of an Innocence Network, which is 56 organizations nationwide and 12 organizations abroad that seek to prevent wrongful convictions.
That's great. That is really, really great. I love hearing organizations that's all about helping people. I love it. I truly love it. Also, what are the most common causes of wrongful convictions?
Sure. So some of the leading factors for the cases that were overturned with DNA, we're now up to 357 DNA-based exonerations. And I say that because there's thousands of others that were other folks who were exonerated through other means, not through DNA. But for our cases, the leading factors are like in Allen's case, an eyewitness misidentification, false confessions where a confession was coerced or whatever the case may be, jailhouse informants. So there are the informants that are actually incarcerated that will give information in exchange for, you know, like leniency in their sentence or, you know, even like a better living situation within the prison.
Wow.
And there, yeah, and it is actually a totally unregulated process that we know very little about. So that's another another big issue. Trying to think what else I'm missing. Oh, flawed forensic evidence. That's one that's come more and more to the fore.
Wasn't a woman arrested recently who was tampering with DNA evidence, and people was getting locked away because of it for a very long time? I forgot her name.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the case. She was actually tampering with drug testing.
Okay.
And she was actually making the drugs, everything just test positive and for law enforcement advantages. I think it was Chicago. But that's only, I think it was a Houston case also where you had a lab technician that was tampering with evidence. So it's multiple cases that involves that, unfortunately.
I know she was caught, and she also was punished for it
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
But that doesn't happen often,
No,
right?
it does not.
No.
And,
right.
and it does not happen to the law enforcement officers that a lot of times, purging themselves, submit false evidence, and
Absolutely.
false documents, and no one is held accountable. And because, one of the things, like I talk about these wrongful convictions is, I believe it's still happening today because the prosecutors nowadays are still reluctant to deal with cases that happened when they wasn't even in office. And when you have that type of pushback
Yeah.
from them, it's my belief because they truly know that these behaviors and wrongful convictions are still happening because
Yes.
they get cases where they just believe people are guilty and
Yeah.
and they just run with it and they have to accept it, the cases they get from the police department. And this is why I talk about it. New York City has not had another DNA exoneration since 2006, since my case. And part of the reason I believe is when I was fighting my civil compensation case, the federal judge told the city when they was trying to get the case dismissed, the only reason we're here today is because y'all found evidence.
Right.
So it's like a message. If y'all don't find any more evidence, nobody else won't get exonerated.
Is that the again, I learned from my last guest that was here. Are you speaking about the discovery kit?
Well, speaking about basically just finding evidence
Okay.
in general, the
Okay.
discovery statute is a whole nother issue. I think New York State may have just passed a new law in regard to discovery because that's one of the major issues why people get convicted, whether wrongfully or rightfully, that you don't have access to the evidence against you. I mean, give you a perfect example. You can be suing somebody for $50 and you can learn everything about them. Whereas you can be facing 50 years in jail and you won't learn some of the evidence before you sit down in court that particular day to start the trial.
They could actually, that's crazy. They could actually do that. Like, I withhold evidence from you from.
It's a process. Well, they may say, well, you're trying to intimidate a witness, or, it's just a discovery process that's broken in New York State. Other states really have a lot more liberal process as far as allowing you access, but when you compare it to the civil process, where you can get access to everything just because you're suing somebody for monetary damages, it's completely different when you're facing years or life in prison.
Oh man.
It doesn't help that a lot of people don't know their rights, and a lot of people can't afford a qualified attorney. You know what I'm saying? Like what they call public defenders, the
Yeah,
public
yeah.
that work for the state.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And their job is just to clear as many of these cases as possible. They're not your best interest is not necessarily at hand there. So it's hard to fight something you don't know that you have the rights to fight, and you don't know your rights. You don't know what your rights are.
Even though you may be able to find some great public defenders, but if they handling 35 cases all
That
at
too.
one time,
Right.
that automatically presents an issue right there because they running around back and forth,
Right.
and the fact that they getting so much pushback. Because if you was handling 35 cases and everything was fair, it may be different when it comes to wrongful convictions. You wouldn't have these many cases, but because the process is not fair, it's so adversary, that causes the problem, though,
Oh man.
or one of the problems.
It's you try to get to one layer, but then when you start talking, there's so many different layers that you have to unravel. And my question for the Innocence Project, as I asked AJ, from everything that you see on a daily basis and trying to help people get exonerated, how do you stay in a mental space to, say, this is my job, I can't let this, overwhelm me, because things like that can start to affect your health and, as AJ said, your spirituality at times. How do you stay afloat, because I know even though you may not try to take it personal, you take it personal.
Yeah, I think for all of us at the Innocence Project, we do this work because we truly believe in the organization's mission and we want to make a difference. And it's hard to not have things impact you and to leave things in the office. Like I'm sure Amshala can't leave things in the office, and I certainly can't, and I know none of my colleagues can, but it's really important to try to find time for yourself and kind of understand that if you burn out, you're no good to anybody else. And so it's
Absolutely.
really important to have a good sense of what your limits are and when it's time to take a step back and take some time for yourself. And the organization is really supportive with work-life balance and making sure that we do take care of ourselves as much as we can, because we're no good to anybody if we're exhausted and stressed out all the time.
And I could imagine you work around the clock just about too. Yeah.
A lot of people do.
Yeah. Oh man.
It also helps when you have your own support system, your
Yeah.
husband, your wife, your family. They can be your center for you. You know what I mean? So that helps a lot. I mean, and not everybody has that, but I mean, you know, when you have that, that's a bonus.
Right.
You know.
Okay. Oh man. And to the Innocence Project, what do you look for when you choose cases to work on? Because I know it's like so many that come across your desk. Are there any like specific points that you look for where you say, okay, I'm going to jump into this one?
Yeah, so the way we accept cases is through the intake department. So people who are incarcerated or their loved ones write letters to us, and those letters go to our intake department, which has just a tremendous job. First, due to the volume, the amount of letters and requests that we get, but also just how difficult it is to read these letters from people who have no legal representation and are coming to us, and we may be their last opportunity to get assistance. And so what they do is they start a very tedious process of, reading trial transcripts and trying to get to the heart of whether or not there is biological evidence, whether or not there is DNA evidence that was left at the crime scene that if we exclude the client from, then we can say that the client is actually innocent. And so in most instances, we're looking at cases where it's a sexual assault or a violent crime, or there was a violent struggle, or there is, a logical inference that if the client is excluded from this piece of evidence, we know that he or she could not have committed this crime.
Right. Were there ever times where you were part of a case and it's possible Innocence Project wasn't able to actually help someone get exonerated and you would pass the case on to someone else to, like another organization to help? Or
yeah, so obviously we get a lot of requests and we can't accommodate all of them. We can't take all those cases on, and they're also, so at some points we have to make referrals, and sometimes we make referrals to some of our network partners or to other lawyers in the cities or the states where these convictions occurred. But also, even when we accept cases, the first step for us if we're looking for biological evidence is to find the evidence, and not all the evidence exists. And
how long does it normally take to find the evidence, especially if it's a case going back?
Well, it's a case by case process, so I can't say definitively how long. But today we have much better ways of tracking evidence. Back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, it wasn't, it wasn't computerized. There weren't barcodes scanning everything, and so really evidence could be almost anywhere. We could have evidence in the courthouse, evidence in a prosecutor's desk, evidence at the sheriff's office, evidence at the lab. Sometimes the court reporters maintained evidence, and so the lawyers start this very lengthy process of trying to track down the evidence. And that, sometimes you get lucky. You pick up the phone, you call a lab, and they put in the number and they say, oh yeah, we got this number. And then there are other times you look at Al Newton's case, and the search takes much longer than it actually should have.
Yeah. Oh man. AJ, you have questions that you want to?
No, I want to ask. Like, I know when people call Black Westchester, usually where you've exhausted every other thing that you can. Nowhere else to go. We're the person that you call because you don't have nowhere else to go. But being a small staff, I don't have the manpower that you have. There's a lot of times there's people's parents that have called me about their children being wrongfully incarcerated, and no parent thinks that their kid did what they did. So sometimes their kid actually did. I don't have time to vet all of these situations. Sometimes it bothers me because you just can't help everybody. Do y'all experience it? I mean, like I said, y'all have a lot more manpower though. Do y'all experience that, and how do y'all deal with that?
So I think kind of going back to the evidence searches, for example, there are times where we know the only way we can prove someone's innocence is if we find that biological evidence. And there are times when we go through evidence searches for years and we come to learn that the evidence has been destroyed, and at that point we have no way forward. And so that's certainly probably one of the most difficult things for me, I can say personally, is closing a case where there really is no resolution one way or another because we haven't been able to find the evidence. And I know that's true for a lot of my colleagues. So we certainly face those obstacles and those roadblocks, and they're probably the most difficult cases that come across my desk.
My family and I, we kind of experienced that also in my request, seeking assistance, having my brothers, knock on doors, make phone calls. Sometimes we used to get somebody come in and they promise us this and then won't accept any more phone calls. So I used to just tell my family, look, move on, because I'm not going to give up, because it was about not trying to put too much hope in things, because I was filing motions on a regular basis. I got my feelings, I was joyful when I put the motions in, and when they got denied, I got depressed. But, I had the opportunity to keep moving forward, so a lot of times I had to express that to my family. Look, just keep going on. Don't worry about it. We're not going to hold it against people because, like AJ said, a lot of times people was overwhelmed and, and a lot of people was reaching out. I was doing legal work upstate too, so I understood the process, so it made it a little more easier for me not to be so disappointed because I wasn't able to get that assistance that I was, I expected, because I reached out to some of my representatives also, and it was like the doors was closed, and it was like, okay, let's just move on.
I appreciate the fact that you did some of the work, because sometimes a parent or someone will call me and there's no work done, and then the time and energy I have to take to research the situation, and all of them are not righteous situations.
Right.
Sometimes I don't have the time to even invest. Like you have to bring me something. You know what I'm saying? I don't have time to get to that point to see if it's a worthwhile situation. So I tell people that, and then I never get nothing from them.
When someone reach out to you or the Innocence Project to help someone that's in a situation that you was in, what are some of the things that they could bring to you to give you a heads up on, to help you move through to try and help the individual?
Well, I was trying to show people that I was innocent. One of the things I was always asking for was the DNA evidence. Let's try to find the DNA evidence, because 4 years after I got convicted, they actually found the rape kit. I was charged with a sexual assault. They found the rape kit. It was sent to the medical examiner's office to be tested. Now, I heard the testimony in trial. The woman said she was assaulted. She felt something wet running down, so it was biological evidence. But after 4 years, they tested the evidence, and they said it wasn't any biological evidence. So I was still harping on that, even after I got that decision years later. So I was harping on that. I was harping on the fact that it was a misidentification case. I was in a different borough, had alibi witnesses. So having that, paperwork to be able to show people this is what I was doing, this is where I'm at, it made it a little easier for people maybe to open the door. But a lot of times the door got slammed, but it was about being persistent. Because I hired attorneys, I paid some money, and we filed some motions, and then motions was dropped. And I was told a lot of times that nobody wanted to deal with my case. I don't know what that meant, but lawyers was taking some money sometime and not doing work. And so, like I said earlier, I just instructed my family, let's move on and just try to find the next opening where we can get our foot in the door in the courts.
Right. I was invited to see a screening by Shonda, Crown Heights.
Great.
And I was the whole time I was trying not to cry, but I did cry because, just to be walking down the street and you're pulled away and put in a police car and you're being told you committed a crime that you didn't commit, and you're like, wait, what's going on? All I did was go to the corner store. How am I in this situation now? And when we was able to see time just go by of him fighting to try and get out, and sitting in front of the parole officers, and they're saying denied and denied and denied, and I forgot the character, Carl was his name, and every time he was sitting in front of the parole officers, he accumulated a lot of good credentials while he was in prison, but then they tried to demean his character every time he was sit in front of them. Like,
as long as you don't accept responsibility for the crime that you're convicted of, because regardless of your argument, once you're convicted, they want you to show remorse and take responsibility. And he had a violent offense. He was charged with a homicide. I was charged with a sexual assault. So you see, it doesn't matter the nature of the offense that you charge with. Some people charge with drug offenses and refuse to take any type of drug programming because their argument is, I don't have anything to do with this offense. I don't have anything to do with that crime. And that causes a catch-22 situation, because legally the parole board cannot release you if you do not address programming that's in reference to the nature of your offense. So going to the parole board, like the character in that, I went to the parole board 3 times, and 3 times I got denied, and the 4th time I was planning not even going, because it was like, look, they cannot release me. I mean, even though I had college degrees while I was in there, I went to school, I had a bunch of different vocational programming, but their argument was, as long as you refuse to take responsibility for this offense, we can't release you. Now, I know some people that was wrongfully convicted that took the programming, and a lot of times they still was denied release by the parole board.
so it's almost like they trick you then. Like,
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is just based on, whatever Albany was deciding, because even though you sat before 3 people making the decision, the final decision really came out of Albany, though.
Right. AJ, any more? You have any?
I mean, I have a lot to say, but I'm trying not to dominate the show. I mean, the whole system. Well, once you understand that the system was created to hold you back and not to help you. I mean, once you get that in your mind, you go into realistic expectations. You know what I'm saying? Like, we think, oh, well, the system is supposed to. It's not designed for that. Like,
Definitely not.
I mean, you have judges, like we were saying. We got judges that are invested in the privatized system. Prison is big business. Lots of people are making lots of money. They don't worry about programs to rehabilitate you when you get out, because it's set up for you to go back in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's we have to understand that, one. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not fair. People are like, oh, it's not fair. Yes, that's something my mother told me when I was 5. The world is just not fair. You know what I'm saying? You have to understand that, because there's a lot of people disillusioned. That if they haven't come across, they don't understand that the system is built. Like, I've interviewed almost every police commissioner and chief in Westchester County, and they all told me there's no racism in their police department, and race doesn't matter in the way they police. That's not true.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, race doesn't matter, and there's a lot of people that say there is no racism. If it doesn't affect you every day, and you don't come in contact with it, it's hard for you to understand that it is. There's some people that really think things are good. Like, why are you complaining? Y'all had a black president. Why are you complaining? Things are not still. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We have to understand that. We have to fight. What I want to say, though, to anybody who's listening that might come across y'all, one of the best things you can do before you approach someone like me or someone like you, do your homework.
Yeah.
We live in a time right now, like you spoke on a couple of things. I looked them up right away. I was looking up the discovery thing with the law and all that. Like, do your homework. Google is a wealth of information. You can Google anything. Find out whatever the particular case is, whatever the case law is. Case law matters a lot too. That's why do you know that they try to plead you out a lot for a lot of these situations? So there's no case law. But if you continue to fight, even though you're right and you win your case, there's case law. So now the people in the future can pull up your case and use that case. But if they get you to plead out or settle and police brutality suits, there's no case law.
Well, this the reason why Michelle Alexander's book, The School to Prison Pipeline, is so important, because the same things you see going on with the prison system, you see in the education systems around the country.
Absolutely.
It's like they trying to pull people out of there and keep them uneducated and just put them in the system, because, I remember years ago, New York City was going into the high schools using the yearbooks as mugshot books. So it was like, look, if we can criminalize them at a young age, let's try to get them, because all that was going to do was cause people to be, wrongfully picked out. You go and you're getting their yearbooks and using that as mugshot books. This was New York City, one of the biggest cities in the country, but still doing a lot of stuff that's backwards, and that's the unfortunate part. This is a democratic town, a democratic city, but a lot of times the way the government is run in this city and state is undemocratic, unfortunately.
The other thing is, you can go further back than that. The standardized test.
I want to jump to
okay.
Susan and Mshula, right? Amshula. Okay. I wanted to ask also, after someone is exonerated, are you financially, are you given anything financially from being wrongfully accused in your time away, or you just have to?
You got to fight. You got to fight to get paid. I mean, now I took New York City to trial. After 4 years, I won a substantial judgment, and it was lowered. But what that did is open the door for a lot of other exonerees that was wrongfully convicted and had to wait. I had to wait 10 years to get compensated. Now you got men and women getting compensated in 2-3 years. The process is a lot quicker because the city controller is actually taking a big step and saying, look, instead of your people having to file lawsuits, I'm going to start compensating once you file your notice of claim, because it costs us a lot to litigate for years. And a lot of times, you got the de Blasio administration, you got the Bloomberg administration before that. None of them want to recognize these wrongful conviction cases, in the city. The police department, the district attorney's office was basically doing wrong. So now the city's taking a different approach when it comes to the controller's office in regards to settling cases. So these men and women don't have to wait 10, 15 years to try to get compensated for things they did, even though there's another statute under the Wrongful Conviction Act for the state statute, and the compensation is the same thing a lot of these men and women have to go through. You have to fight the same type of fight to prove you're innocent, even when you got DNA cases.
And when you come out, I know it probably takes time. Is this removed from your record so that when you go for a job interview, things like this don't come up, especially if you didn't commit the crime? It shouldn't be on your
New York expunged the records, but like everything else, you have to make sure you stay on top of them in regards to getting it done, though, because things just don't get done. I mean, a perfect example is my DNA exoneration. New York City never put that DNA through a national database to find out who may have committed the crime. Now, even though the statute of limitations expired and the person can't get prosecuted, but they don't want any more negative. They didn't want any more negative press, any more negative publicity in regards to trying to find out who may have committed this crime. So that just go to show you, you have to always follow up with things, and you have to keep yourself educated, like AJ was saying, when it comes to knowing your rights. And, I tell kids nowadays, just be quiet when you're dealing with law enforcement. Call your parents, be quiet, because anything you said is just more ammunition, unfortunately.
Like they say, it will be held against you.
Yeah. And some, it's not all, but some cops just take advantage of people that don't know their rights.
We interviewed the Central Park Five. One or two of the members have been on the show. Yusef Salam has been on the show, and his mother have been on the show several times, sitting in these seats right here. And Yusef said, they saw on TV that the cops wanted to question them. They went into the police, not knowing their rights. They went into the police department to tell the police that they didn't do it. They never went home. You know what I'm saying? It's like he said, literally, he did not understand that, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you. He did not understand that at 15. He just went in to clear his name, to let them know, because the cops were looking for him. Him and the other guy, because they picked up 2 or 3 of them, and him and another guy were left. And he said, they just went in to tell him, no, we just wanted to let you know we didn't do it. They never went home.
Never go home.
You know what I'm saying? So the other thing I wanted to say, to piggyback off what you were saying.
Hold on one second.
Okay.
Oh, I was just going to follow up on the false confessions and the fact that we see this a lot. As Amshula mentioned, one of the leading causes, one of the contributing factors of wrongful convictions that we see in our cases are false confessions. And in what we found in the DNA exonerations is that about 30% of those cases had some type of admission, some kind of false confession. And the fact is that decades of social science research has proved that in fact your innocence puts you at risk of giving a false confession.
Yeah.
Because what you want to do is you want to be helpful, you want to tell the police everything that you know because you have nothing to hide.
Right.
And so instead of saying I want a lawyer, you just keep telling the police, I didn't do it, and you end up in this police station for hours upon hours being interrogated. And so, in fact, your innocence puts you at risk. And also, the Central Park Five, we're teenagers, and what we see is that there are certain people that are more likely to give a false confession.
Right.
And those are people that have that are juveniles or that have some kind of limitations because they are more suggestible and they want to be compliant with law enforcement.
Right, because they want to go home and they feel if I tell you what you want to know, you'll let me go because I'm innocent.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right.
The research shows that juveniles, they're looking for an immediate reward, and so for them, what they think is, if I just tell you what you want to hear, I'll leave this room, because they're just thinking about what's happening in the here and now, and not realizing if I admit to a crime, I'm never going home. Probably.
Right.
I think what's interesting about false confessions too is that certainly juveniles are more vulnerable, but everybody is vulnerable.
Absolutely.
Like, anybody can break and give a false confession.
Yes.
And I think the reality is that you don't come into the world thinking that everybody is out to get you, right? So there is like a certain amount of natural trust that you have. In the Central Park 5 case, not only when it came down to it did they manufacture these confessions, but in the case of Corey Wise, I don't know if you remember, but they basically were like, why don't you just come down with your buddy to the station? So he thought he was going with his friend down to the police station because he was a sweet kid,
and
right?
That's like you just mentioned, you come into this world not thinking everyone is out to get you, but then it's like I think AJ said it earlier, when you look at reality, it's like you have to put up some type of defense for yourself because there are people who are out to get you. I don't know if you could comment on that, what I just
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that I'll say is that, the Supreme Court has said that you're allowed to lie to somebody to get them to make an admission, right? So they can tell you, hey, we have your DNA at the crime scene.
And you see that a lot,
and
too.
That's pretty scary. You're like, well, what do you mean you have my DNA? I wasn't there. And all of a sudden you feel like there's no way out. If they're telling me my DNA is there, if they're telling me they have a fingerprint there, you feel like maybe I did it, maybe, and that's what we see a lot of times. Like it's amazing.
They start making you think maybe I actually did do the crime and I don't remember.
There was
it's
one,
a mental game.
There was one guy, Michael Crow, who was 14 years old, and his sister was killed, and he was interrogated for 27 hours over 3 days. And by the end of this, I mean, you can Google it and see some of these interrogation clips of him, but at the end of it, he truly came to believe that he murdered his sister. And it wasn't until the DNA was tested that they found the true perpetrator.
And even sometimes when they have an idea that the person is innocent, they keep pushing forward. They keep pushing forward because it would give the actual perpetrator, if they catch this person, doubt like, hey, y'all had somebody, you had them locked up for 6 months and then y'all let them go once y'all found out. And so this is why they just, like a dog with a bone, even sometime when they find out the evidence is going left, different from
what they actually saying you do it.
Right.
You did.
They just keep going with it. This is why.
I think that
People, go ahead.
I think that what Alan was saying earlier too is like really at the heart of the matter. Like we have an adversarial system, and everybody understands incentives, right?
Right.
And everybody in the system is unfortunately incentivized, on the law enforcement and prosecution side to identify someone and convict someone.
Mm-hmm.
And until and unless that changes, unless we are rewarded for seeking truth, or even identifying someone but then saying, no, you know what, I made a mistake, until that happens, unless that happens, then we're going to continue to see these kinds of people being railroaded into prison.
How do we, so when you have a detective or a police officer that's wrongfully accusing someone, and then in time you find out the person that they accused wasn't the correct person, how do like what type of punishment or anything are they given? Because a lot of times we see people just walk away, and you have people that are the detectives that keep doing the same thing, and that can cause mass incarceration. Also, people in there for things they didn't do by certain detectives.
Absolutely.
What can, I mean, what can we do to like bring those people, you know, to be punished for what they're doing? Because you're interfering with people's livelihoods. You're taking people away from their families. You may have someone who is some type of athlete, and they have scholarships to go to college or to be a doctor, and you're interfering with their livelihood. And when they come out, it's hard to get back on track because your image been tarnished, everything you have has gone away, and it's hard for you to start over. So is there, like, what can we do to try and find a way to stop this, if there's anything that we could do?
Well, I think the community is already starting to change the landscape on that. I think for a long time, and so police have what's called qualified immunity. So it's not total immunity, like prosecutors have complete immunity. Police have qualified immunity. So I guess there are some, you know, there are some exceptions where they can be held accountable for their actions. I think, you know, New York City has certainly made attempts, right? That's the CCRB, the Civilian Complaint Review Board, that is supposed to oversee and investigate incidents of police misconduct. But, you know, I think to date, most of these attempts have failed. So I think what is succeeding is, you know, Shonda was mentioning earlier that you guys have had Eric Garner's family on the show, you know, and other folks like that, is really like the community's coming up and saying, you know, enough is enough, and we want to see some justice. Actually in Kentucky, there was a detective who's we know has contributed to at least 2 wrongful convictions, probably more, who's actually been indicted now. So I think, you know, slowly but surely things are starting to change. The other thing I would say to your listeners is that they need to get out and vote. Right. You know, and not just for the federal presidential elections, but for your local, for your DA, right, for your city council, for your mayor, because the only way that we can hold them accountable is by telling them, you know what, you're going to lose your job now. Right.
And I think also a lot of times people are afraid to say things because you're, as in the movie Crown Heights, where the detective went after someone who was being, he said, I could deport you if you don't say what I want you to say. So a lot of people are afraid to come forward and speak up when they know someone is being wrongfully accused of a crime. So,
and the real power lay with a lot of those judges, because it starts at the top, and I believe this is the reason why nobody's held responsible, because the judges allowed perjured testimony, they allowed all type of stuff in the courtroom to go on. They see it firsthand. They experience it. They know. I mean, you gotta. You know, the Conviction Integrity Unit now investigating a particular cop in Brooklyn, and they got over a dozen cases that he was involved in, the same witness that he was always bringing in the court, witnessing multiple homicides in Brooklyn. So it was known through the court system that this cop was doing this stuff, and them judges was allowing this testimony to be put before juries on a regular basis. So until those judges start being held responsible, nobody else, because judges can make referrals. Yes. There was a cop that really just got indicted because he committed perjury in a federal gun case, you know, and this is why he got indicted. He got indicted in the federal system. But as far as one of these district attorneys in New York City indicting a cop for perjury, unless you know you got it on tape, and even though you know they lie about people confessing, and then DNA evidence show that this person could not have confessed to a crime he didn't commit, nothing is going to happen though.
Right. And you mentioned, you know, if you don't have it on tape, but then now still, if you have stuff on tape, they still sweep it under the rug.
I want to talk about the voting aspect. What you just said, a lot of people vote for the president.
You're not allowed to talk about politics. So we.
I was just saying the need to vote, though.
I can talk politics, though.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm not talking about any
sorry.
politicians, but what
Oh.
I'm saying, the importance of the vote is
Okay.
for your local mayor, your mayor appoints your police commissioner. You know what I'm saying? And all the commissioners, how your city is governed and regulated, it's your local mayor. People don't understand that. So if you have a problem in your police department and the mayor's not getting rid of them, you get you a new mayor. You understand what I'm saying? Those are you can affect more change in your local life, in your local elections, than you can for the president.
Oh, yeah.
The president, those local seats actually
Are
affect
very
your day to
important.
day more than the president. And that's what I just wanted to say
Yeah.
about that.
That's
And
very
the other tricky thing is that judges are elected in lots of states.
I was going to say that too.
But there's very little information out there.
They're not
about
allowed.
them,
There's a lot.
you know?
I've had them on the show. They're not allowed to talk about certain things. You can't ask them certain things. You know what I'm saying? But then they're asking us for a vote.
Right.
But then so you don't really get to know what their thoughts are, how they really think on certain issues. You don't. And then they're some of these are like 10 years. The
Right.
local spots, like that's the dangerous thing with those.
They have a lot of community selection committees when it comes to judges in the city, and unfortunately, a lot of people do not get involved or just don't know about the process when it comes, because you have a lot of different community organizations that actually choose and pick people to sit on these selection committees where these potential judges go talk about, their resume, who they are, what they're trying to do. But if we don't have any input in the process because of a lack of education, a lack of the process, this is why we keep falling for the same okie doke
Exactly.
as,
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
And I do think there's a real problem with transparency and information
Yes.
when it comes to judicial candidates. We can find
yeah.
out, rightly so, we can find out a lot about our city council members or state reps or whoever it is, but you can't find anything on the judges. And they hold people's lives in their hands, and that's not right.
Right. It's like, they're a judge and we know you a judge, so we're going to pull you out of the public eye. You're just here to do this. We don't want people to know about you. Oh, yeah.
And they can't speak on certain things.
Right.
Because I've asked them, and like I said, in this
Yeah.
very studio, and they'll be like, well, we can't speak on this, and we can't speak on that. And that's the answers. But those are the answers we need to know before we vote for you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's a catch-22. And I don't know who changes that legislation, but again, that's the importance of educating ourselves, because we need to know, obviously some of that might need to be changed. So we need to know who is the people who make those changes,
Right.
and we need to start hollering at them.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, that's the only way you make change.
Right.
But I would point out that, Alan's absolutely right that, these judges play a critical role, and they often are, kind of turning a blind eye to the things that they're seeing in their courtrooms. But the people that we do know information about that we can also elect, who also have enormous power, are the district attorneys.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, I know I only have you until 4, so I wanted to say thank you so much for coming on the Nina Monique Show. I greatly appreciate you coming on and dropping a whole lot of knowledge on us about, being wrongfully accused in the process of what goes on when you're trying to be exonerated. And Alan,
Thank you.
no, thank you for coming on. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story and for taking the time out to come visit us. So on that note, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back later in a few minutes. And right now, we're going to come off air.
Peace.
Peace.
Good together, they go together.
I like it perfect.
Good together, they go together.
Make sure that I hook up for this one.
Good together, they go together.
My smoking niggas, light it.
Good together, they go together. Gucci and Army fatigue, look good together, they go together.
They go.
Mixing the pep with the lean, look good together, they go together.
They go.
Mixing the Sprite with the lean, they good together, they go together. Yeah, Gucci and Army fatigue, look good together, they go together.
They go.
Niggas is raw, dog. They shooting the clubs up. Really don't trust no bitch, nigga. We thuggin', we switch fuck. Yeah, 17 pop. New York nigga with a South switch. She look like Lauren on some Ralph shit. turned up off the loud split. Rags attached to the front, bulletproof, couple shots. Rags attached to the front, bulletproof, couple shots got me slumped. Dipping and dab, I left her on red. She asked me what happened. Video 8, my niggas in big. We started this fast. And drink till I pad. Rockstar lifestyle and my nails stay black. All the dogs fuck with me. And all the goons got my back. G on the beat, Gucci the top. Camouflage with a knot. Making it rain, finessing the strippers. Pull it back to the block.
Bitch on my bands look good together, they go together. Me and all my niggas, we roll together, we grow together. We absorb that broke, but grind together, we glow together. Blue thumb from counting it. Fuck it, I'ma use a counter. Pull up in phones lit, Shorty, she know the shit, She said she ain't with the shit, But baby couldn't get with the shit, I'ma go hit no boy's head. I'm getting bigger than my forehead. If I fuck a bitch and that's a threesome, you know that tail you gotta get some. I need the Glock, how can I not? That's not my wallet, that's just a knot. Prince thought I don't need a key. Only kids in my city. Make it rain, I feel like Drizzy. Drizzy nigga, what's the dilly? I'm dead nice, nigga, dig me. I'm dead nice, nigga, dig me.
Gucci and Army fatigue look good together, they go together. Mixing the pep with the lean, look good together, they go together. Mixing the Sprite with the lean, they go together, they go together. Gucci and Army fatigue look good together, they go together.
Diamonds and me together, they go right. Wait for me after my show. I got my time for these hoes. Then we can hop in the Rolls Royce. We clearing 20 a show. Even 10 and 15 years ago. I go shopping at Neiman some more. I count hundreds and 50 some more. I could go fuck your bitch some more. I can make your bitch rich some more. I can guarantee hit some more. Me and my squad never miss some more. These setting trends, they go together. New York nigga rocking my 40 belows in any weather. Sav life, nigga.
Gucci and Army fatigue look good together, they go together. Mixing the pep with the lean, look good together, they go together. Mixing the Sprite with the lean, they good together, they go together. Gucci and Army fatigue look good together, they go together.
Salsa. Babalu Machete, the infinite clip. Yo, echa Carlos, oh cabrón. Meterte a ti como un jolar y darle un blon. Estás hablando y joncando del más jodón. Hemos tirado a gatillero en la orilla del callejón. Yo, echa Carlos, oh cabrón. Meterte a ti como fumarme un fucking blon. Estás
right. We ready. And we're back. Thank you to the Innocence Project for coming on the Nina Monique Show. And Alan Newton. I definitely enjoyed the show. Got a lot of information, a lot of stuff I didn't know. And just like AJ mentioned, it's important that you know your rights and you know everything that's going on. Because if something was to come up for you, you have to know what to say, what to do, and how to react. Because as we heard, you know, it's easy to be tricked into saying something and getting caught up in a situation even more.
Absolutely. I can remember when I was much younger, on Hot 97, they had something called Street Soldiers.
Oh, yeah, with Lisa Evers.
And she had a guest on there that was telling you how to react when stopped by the police.
Right.
There was a bunch of police that were, you know, acting up at the time in New York City. I got stopped around the same time after that show. They were giving me nothing but attitude, but the show probably saved my life. You know, knowing what to do, keeping my hands at a certain level, not giving them back attitude. I still got a lot of attitude, but it would have been worse had I gave into it.
Right.
You know, and then
because they look for reasons.
Right, and there were other people before and after me who were beat up and killed. You know what I'm saying? So like that show. So I tried to do as much of that as possible because there's another young person like me listening out there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So we have to educate our young people what their rights are. We got to educate them, especially our young black and brown people, what to do. And here's another thing. The other side of it, I have a lot of police friends. When a police walks up on a car,
they don't know
for the first 10, 15, 30 seconds, they do not know what they're walking up on.
Right.
They do not know you could have just robbed a bank. You could have just done. So they have to kind of sort of be on high alert. It's up to you at that point to let them know that you are not a threat and you are going to comply.
Right.
That doesn't mean that there won't be some cops. I'm trying to use nice words. Wouldn't be certain officers that are going to give you attitude and bust your chops anyway. But by letting them know that, you know, I'm complying, you got your hand at 10 and 2 on the wheel where they can see it. You let them know I'm reaching my what you're asking for is in my glove compartment. Can I reach for that?
Right.
You know, so there's no I'm reaching for something, you know. And down south, I lived in Atlanta, like you can literally have your gun on your right there on the dashboard or in the seat, letting them know I have a weapon. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like, you know, those things sometimes can save your life, and we need to know those things.
And sometimes, like you said, though, like you'll have those officers, and I'm not one to bash officers because, like you said, it's two sides to the stories. But you also have officers who don't listen to that Philando.
Right.
You mentioned when you have a gun on the dashboard, and he was trying to tell the officer, I have a permit to carry.
Right.
That still happened.
You know what bothers me about that? I'm sorry to interrupt you. The NRA. Talk to a lot of NRA members. They are always defending a person's rights to carry.
Right.
The NRA were completely silent. They had nothing to say about that case. You didn't hear a peep from them about that case. And this is the one, and he should be one of the people they talk about. Everybody has the right to carry this, that, and the other. He did it the right way. He had a right. They didn't mention anything. And I was not really a big supporter of the NRA in the beginning, but I really was a little disturbed that you didn't hear a thing from them. And I've reached out to people in their organization, and they didn't have a comment. So.
But that's normally how it go. Unfortunately. Unfortunately. I want to switch gears for a minute.
Absolutely.
Because I want to talk about AJ Woodson.
We don't want to lose all your people listening now. Just playing. Go ahead.
Now, my question is, how did you get involved in everything that you're doing? What set that spark where you said, you know what, I have to be more involved in my community. I have to be more involved in helping people find justice. I want to write about it. I want to have a show about it. What triggered that to come about?
So honestly, I was in the music business. And after I got out, I was a recording artist. When I got out of that, I wrote for The Source, Vibe, Village Voice, all the music things. I was like a lot of other people. I wasn't thinking about no politics. I didn't care about no city council election. I thought I did something. I voted for Clinton and I voted for Obama. Oh, I did something. That was my involvement in politics. I'm gonna be honest. I wasn't. I mean, I was registered, but you know, I didn't care. You wouldn't catch me at a city council meeting. I didn't. You know, we had those complaints like everybody else when there was an Eric Garner, or back then it was Amadou Diallo. You know, we had those conversations. But you know, I was getting more and more on certain topics. You know, as time went on. But I came back. I was in Georgia. I came back.
Born there.
Georgia?
Augusta.
Okay, Augusta. I was in the metro Atlanta area. Like, there's just parts of Georgia I just did not venture out into. So there's still parts that you need to be out of before dark now. Like, you know. So anyway, so I was my mother got diagnosed stage 4 cancer. I came back home to take care of her. I actually came to visit her on Mother's Day. Did not know I was staying. Whatever happened, I dropped everything and I stayed to take care of her. My partner, Damon K. Jones, and I, 10 years before that, before I even went to Georgia, we worked together. We had a music business company. We had a label. We were trying to put out artists. We were doing a lot of music business type stuff. He was working on trying to put together like a hip hop Hall of Fame or something, and you know we were into that. He was a lot more into this since I was gone. He had ran for city council. He started speaking up about the treatment of police to people of color and stuff like that. So one of the things that he would get upset about, the local mainstream media would come out to his press conferences, but they would only show clips.
Right.
Those clips were not always representative of what he was talking about in his So basically, he had to do a press conference. He knew I was every day, all day in the hospital or the rehab with my mom. Said, "Why don't you come out, videotape this thing for me?" It was 4 black parole officers. They had to get a parolee from Ramapo, Suffolk County, a little bit upstate, going upstate. So what happened? These 4 black parole officers, the parolee was not home. On their way out of town, there was a roadblock. They got stopped. They got pulled out the vehicle. They got thrown to the ground, and they got guns pulled on them. Now, let me set the stage for you. They had on vest, bulletproof vest that said NYS parole across the chest. They had their badges on a chain around their necks, and they were in a government vehicle. And they were held at gunpoint for 45 minutes. Then one of the white officers recognized one of them, was like, "Oh, that's Jones," or whoever, know, dealt with him. He's the head of parole. They were still held at another 22 minutes at gunpoint. They were suing because nothing had been done. I've always had a blog. So basically, I wrote, when he gave me the finished video, he gave it to me, I posted it on my blog. And basically, I wrote something along the lines of, "Yo, if it ain't safe for them, what chances a brother like me got in the street?" That sparked a nerve. I guess
when you see it was face to face.
When people read my blog,
right,
it was like, I guess people hadn't seen nothing like that in a long time.
Right.
So Damon came up with the idea. He wanted to do something like this. He had already been doing this work. He needed a pen to go with his movement. And that's what we became. We became partners. We put out Black Westchester. It was an online news magazine. The idea was you have Time, Life, and other things, news magazines for white people, non-black people, but you don't have those in the black community. All our publications are usually entertainment, other than Black Enterprise and 1 or 2 other things. Everything is entertainment based or sports based or even video game based, but nothing like news oriented like Time or Newsweek. So we were doing kind of, I don't want to say the ghetto version, but our version of that. Right. So
bringing people to, bringing awareness of things that's going on.
So one thing led to another. I just started writing. So an older person told me what I did was, there was like a rich white man in the room that had so much power. His zipper had been open all this time, but nobody would sell him. And I was like, "Yo, man, your zipper's open." And everybody was like, yeah. But nobody was. I'm the person who told him his zip was open.
Right.
That's how they described the article I wrote. Like, I don't know how you take. They said I'm the one that let them know that the zip was open. So basically we did this, and because Damon does a lot of stuff with the police and stuff, we were at the Eric Garners, we were at the Ramali Graham in the Bronx, we were all of these different places. You know, he used to be with the Nation of Islam, he used to be FOI, so we were at a lot of things they were doing, so we started getting the support of all those kind of people in the community. And all other people start coming. So it was just one thing led to another. Right. Then people started calling us, and I started doing bigger and bigger stories. And it was just like, you know what? I felt my mother passed, and my mother was very instrumental, and it's probably my answer to the question the best, in informing the community. She dealt with mortgages and stuff. If you were going to lose your house, she was the person to call. She would tell you how to deal with foreclosure and all that other stuff, or even when you were buying a house, she would help people. If she didn't know what you were going through, she had people that did, and she would call them and get you. She was that person. So she was the connector for the community. And she went on buses for both Obama elections to Pennsylvania and other states to register and campaign for him. You know, she was doing more of that kind of stuff. I wasn't into none of that. So,
but it's amazing how what she did came full circle to you.
Well, and then I felt her passing. She ended up passing. I started working on the paper, probably May, June. I was building the website on her bedside. She passed July 11th, 2014. And I know this sounds crazy to some people, but I felt my mother passed me the baton of doing what, and now I can't do what she does. I ain't gonna do what I do. You know what I'm saying? So, but informing the people and enlightening people and educating the people in your community, speaking truth to power, and all of that. And it was like she passed me a baton. So I was like, yo, I really started over. Like, when I say started over, I mean started over nothing. They say you can't do anything without money. Well, we built this literally, not with a low budget, with no budget. Like, we really did this, and it happened organically. Like, I couldn't have planned this. This happened organically. Even when it was time to put out the paper, we talked about doing a paper. In April last year, I told everybody, yeah, we're coming out in August. My partner Damon was like, yeah, if we get the advertising. No, we're coming out in August.
Right.
Like, I willed that paper to come out. I got us the printer. I found out what it was going to cost. I used a local paper and for their advertising rates and duplicated it and altered it to our needs and sold the advertising some kind of way. And we came out in August 2017. And then since then, it's just given us another lane. And it's like, just another. It
expanded everything.
Right. So there's still some people that say people don't read no more. They want to do everything online. Well, we did it backwards, and that's what people say, we were backwards. But there's a big portion of the population that still wants paper between their hands.
And that's why too, like, not to branch off from what you're saying, but it's important to know what you're trying to accomplish and not let other people's opinions influence what you're trying to do. Because what you just said, you know, everything is online and people saying nobody pick up a paper and read, but you was like, no, we're going to put this out.
And it got into places, the senior buildings and a lot of other places, and it's been a source of information. I've been making up the rules as I go along. I break all laws of journalism and grammatical errors 10 times a day. I'm sure I have English teachers rolling over in their graves if they're dead. Like, I taught you better than that, right? So, but you know what?
As long as you have a message and what you're trying to get across.
One of the things I live by, there's several things. We have on every paper the picture of Shirley Chisholm, unbossed. Nobody owns us. Nobody can tell us what not to do. You don't like it, don't advertise, don't read us. But secondly, I was moved by, and I try to live by these words as far as the paper, the radio show. Muhammad Ali, when at his funeral, and I interviewed him before. That's one of my greatest interviews before doing all this. So one of his daughters or friends or somebody who spoke, they spoke on this 2 or 3 times, and I've actually seen the documentaries where he said this. He was like, I don't have to be who you want me to be. I don't have to do it the way you want me to do it. Yes. And that's what I live by with Black Westchester. I'm not going to do what you think. I'm not black enough for some people, believe it or not, and I'm way too black for a whole lot of people. You know, I've had people say, well, take off the word black and, you know, you'll get more readers. No, that's one of the first things they try to do with us is to take away our identity. Like people would,
Totally.
if I was called Irish Westchester, wouldn't have a problem. If it was Latino Westchester, wouldn't have a problem. If it was LSB, whatever them letters are, the gay community, wouldn't have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's the word black that scares people. You understand what I'm
Still to
saying?
this day, yes.
And every other community, the Chinese, they have their local paper and their local radio shows that, yes, they see CNBC and MSNBC and CNN, but they have their local news that tells them how it applies to their community. We do not. And everybody else defines us. Everybody else tries to, you know what I'm saying?
That's how I feel.
And the other thing is, one of the biggest things is changing the narrative. Yep. A lot of us, I'm hip hop to my bones. I'm a hip hop artist. I'm hip hop down. I will always be hip hop. I'm always gonna mix hip hop into everything I do.
Yes.
But we're not all pants sagging, derelict, gangster, rapping thieves or drug dealers. It's a lot of men handling their business. I try to show the image of fathers taking care of their kids, because that's an image that doesn't exist according to them. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of people who I wrote a story recently, from prison to platinum. A brother who had went to jail, did a whole bunch of bad stuff, served his time, came out. He now owns a car wash. He does. It's called Platinum something car wash. That's why the story was from prison to platinum. Actually, one of the places he was selling drugs or got in trouble was actually in front of that property that now is his car wash. Before he went to jail.
Oh, wow.
He did all these things. He was on a lifetime parole or whatever. Because of all the things he's done since he's been out, he's been removed from that. Like this brother, like that's a story that we need to tell.
Right.
And not only do other people need to see it about us, our people need to read that so they know that these things exist.
And that you can make a change if you want in your life.
With Hollywood, I've been involved in the music business, which, deals with entertainment, deals with everything. I've interviewed most of the people that you like, that's been out, some of the people that just came out. And you know what? We have so many stories to tell. Tyler Perry proved that.
Yes.
I mean, they didn't want to do the stories that he wanted to do. And he had to do some of those Madea stories to do those how can I get married, when I get married, or why I get married type movies, or a few of those kind of movies that were really powerful movies that show black family, that show the intricacies of us. There's a lot of things, but we have to tell our stories.
That's why I really wanted to do the Nina Monique show, because it was just so many things that I was holding in that I would see coming up around my neighborhood and with people that I went to school with. One of the main reasons why I wanted to do shows about people in prison, coming out of prison, who lived a certain lifestyle is because for me, when I went to school, I was in school with two guys, very, very smart. I always thought they was going to be lawyers and doctors. Very smart, helping me with homework and everything, but instead they ended up getting convicted for murder, and one didn't kill someone, but he was involved in it. He was the mastermind behind it. And for me, I said, that's not the people, the individuals that I know. And I remember one of them growing up lost his mom. So it's a story to it. You can't just, leave someone out to dry, because I always said there's a story to it, and I always wanted to bring people's stories to the microphone, or I wanted to do what you're doing with Black Westchester. I tried to start my own magazine for kids in the inner city to have a platform for them to talk about the things that they go through and tell their side of the story. But I let negative opinions stop me from pursuing that.
You have to do what we do. First off, I tell everybody, it's not going to make you popular.
Right.
It's not going to make you friends.
Right.
You're not going to get on many Christmas card lists. But you have to know that that's why when people come to me and be like, yo, we appreciate what you're doing. Today we had a rally, a Save Mount Vernon rally. We're dealing with the unsolved murders in Mount Vernon. A white Italian couple, probably in their 60s, came to me. I just wanted to introduce myself. We love what you're doing. we read, and the wife said, I read an article that you wrote that mentioned the guys who did the rally at the bottom. She then looked them up, found out what it was they were doing, and that's why she was there. You know, for people that was like, yo, we appreciate what you're doing to the youth, and the representing the wrongfully incarcerated, representing the different sides. And also, while there's a lot of that, also highlighting and spotlighting our unsung heroes. There are unsung heroes in every community that are holding it down. That they don't have press conferences. You don't see their pictures in the paper. You don't see write-ups about them. But they've been holding down the community all their lives, or for years and for decades, and been putting in work. And those are the type of people, let's be honest, when I was a knucklehead, and a lot of those kind of people reached out to me and was like, listen, there's something about you. You don't need to be here in them streets, this, that, and other. They saw something in me and reached out to me. Because of them, I'm not dead or in jail like a lot of my peers.
Right.
I'm 52 years without a felony in Mount Vernon, which supposedly is a rare thing these days. Because I told somebody that, at an event, and I thought balloons was gonna come out the sky like I was 100th customer at the supermarket. Like yo, for real, like yo, act like that's something rare. And they was like, it is. And I'm like, whoa. You know, I have friends who I went to high school with who have done 10 to 20 years and they're out now. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, yo, but there was people that saw something in me and they invested in me. I always tell a story. I was cutting school. There was a security guard. He was just security, but he saw something in me. He rode his bike to my house. He knocked on the door. He treated me like a man and asked me to come out to the corner. Not to have this conversation in front of my father. To basically tell me, you effing up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You need to get your blah, 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 blah together, blah, 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 blah. Because he did. I went to school the next day. I'm going to keep it real. You know what I'm saying? But, like, he respected me, that conversation. He didn't call me out in front of my father. Right. Now, he told me the next conversation was going to be in front of my father. But, I mean, but it was like, yo, he lived on the other side of town and rode his bike to my house.
Right.
Like that, you know what I'm saying? Like there was a lot of people that hollered at me when I was that age, and that's why I'm here. So people say the youth is out of control. And I was like, yo, if the youth is out of control, is it the youth failing us? Or is it all of us failing the youth? Because we not giving them people that got at me, our generation ain't doing that now.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And there's not enough of them people that's going. So I try to, anybody who's doing that, try to big them up, big up their little organization, you know, spotlight them, you know. They have fundraisers. You know, Y Cop in Mount Vernon is an organization we had on last week. They had a fundraiser the other night. I made sure I had them explain it, what they do, and tell about why it's important. Right. And then I had to save Mount Vernon people on that were talking about unsolved homicides. And I was like, yo, basically, you can give to organizations like that, or you're going to end up having to support organizations like this. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the end, because they're helping them kids, getting at them kids, which would be either one, the shooter who has nothing to do and is out there getting caught in a gang, or the ones who get shot. You know what I'm saying? And if we don't empower them organizations like that, then we have the Save Mount Vernon. This foundation got to get bigger and bigger because there's a whole lot more unsolved. And I was able to put that image out, you know, to support them. So. It's
very true. And when I was reading your bio, I was like, man, I said, I really like this guy already.
I'm a lot more impressive on paper. You know?
You're very impressive.
I look really, really good on paper. You be like, yeah, that guy ain't got nothing when you meet me in person. But you be like, on paper, I'm the man, though. You know. Yeah.
No, I mean, I really admire what you do. Like I said, when I was reading it, I was like, I can't rap. I'm not a hip hop artist, but everything else that was in your bio, I was like, those are all the things that I wanted to do. So when I get to meet people like you, I always want to say thank you, because you're paving ways for me too, and I appreciate that. And I'm sorry not to cut you off, but just by meeting you today and like hearing, you know, with the Innocence Project and everything you were saying, I took in information also from what you were saying, what the Innocence Project was saying, Alan was saying. But, you know, just talking to you, I hear a lot of similarities of like just wanting to do the things that I want to do, and hearing you say just you have to be comfortable with you and just do it yourself. So I thank you for validating what I've been thinking, what my mother was saying to me all along, because
a lot of things I said, she was like, yeah, I be telling her. Yeah.
So I appreciate that. I appreciate coming into like contact with good people.
You know, there's two things. One, I'm at a point in my life, you know, you got to look at the different cycles of your life. My daughter will be 29 next month. I was married twice. I'm divorced twice. But my last marriage, I had 2 stepdaughters. This is the first time in my life that there's no one depending on me to put food on the table or a roof over their head, that I could take these chances, because if I was still married, I couldn't afford to do this. Because this is a sacrifice. This is a labor of love sometimes. Issue to issue, you know, we had this conversation with the people that know me. It's like, yo, oh man, you got a lot of advertising. Yeah, issue to issue. We don't know how we gonna come out sometimes, but you know, it works out at the end, and we just keep grinding. And I got this whole I'm at a point like, yo, don't stress what you can't control and do the things you can control. So yeah, okay, so I didn't get all the advertising I need yet, but you know what I can control? Putting together the dopest, the toughest, the hottest issue, the most informative issue that I can do, and to keep working on that. And sometimes a lot of things just fall into place when you do the work. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's a matter of just doing the work. I believe in what I do. You have to. To do this, you have to believe in what you do.
Yes.
This ain't something you do because it's cool. This ain't something you do for the
believe in
money. This ain't something you do for the fame. My partner, Damon, his wife is a Mount Vernon police officer. Because of him being outspoken, she's been suspended and messed with at the job. His wife and daughter own a cupcake shop, Cupcake Cutie, that they tried to shut down. You understand what I'm saying? That we just had a press conference yesterday. They're suing. There's sacrifices in being involved in this. Like, you know, I told Damon one day in the beginning, understand, at some point we're gonna uncover something that somebody seriously doesn't want uncovered. You know what I mean? And they're gonna fight whatever to make sure it's not a cup. I mean, you know, but people say, ain't you scared? I'm not fearless. I know I'm not Superman or whatever you feel is an invulnerable. I'm not Luke Cage. I'm not bulletproof. But I feel on a level of, can't no man do nothing to me that God don't allow. And if he allow it, he gonna walk me through it. You know what I'm saying? And don't get me wrong, I don't want to die or nothing like that. But yo, I feel like if somebody take me out, I'm gonna be a martyr that's gonna move, gonna start a movement. Like, I mean, you know, maybe that's just in my head, but that's how I feel. And I try to stand on the traditions of the Amsterdam, the county press in Westchester, all the historical black papers that when we talk about that time, and that's where we go. You know, I got the Mount Vernon library. They're archiving every copy of the paper. So 20 years from now, if that library's still there, when you going to do some stories or something, you can pull up them articles. You know what I'm saying? The way I can pull up them old articles from the you know, that cover the civil rights movement and something like that. Like, those are the type of things. And I see the large picture. Yeah, some people ain't gonna feel me right now. When we had Mayor Davis in Mount Vernon, a whole bunch of people didn't like me because we pointed out all his bad. The new mayor was city councilman. All his people loved me because I was hard on Ernie Davis. Ernie Davis left. Now all of the Richard Thomas people, they hate me, them same people. I'm like, yo, hold up. Because the player changed, the game ain't changed. You know what I'm saying?
You have to be able to take everything that comes with what you're doing.
But now the Ernie Davis people that couldn't stand me, oh, they my people now. Because the person they don't like is who I'm going after. Like, and then when he's out, there's some people that don't like me now, that they're not going to like the next person and they're going to be cool with me, or my agenda lines up with whatever their agenda is temporarily. You know, I don't fool myself. It is what it is.
Exactly.
I just figure as long as I try. Yo, I say this all the time. Am I perfect? Heck no. Am I gonna make mistakes? Absolutely. I try to man up to the ones I do when I realize it, and I try to limit them and learn from them. With every story I do, I learn something different. Like what you just said. Like I don't know. People think I know everything. I look up a lot of stuff, and for every story I do, I learn something. So, you know, and I hope that Black Westchester, and I'll say this, I hope Black Westchester, there's a lot of young people that's involved. There's a lot of volunteers because we don't have money to pay anybody. It's a lot of volunteers, but whatever their thing is that they're trying to do, at least it was set up that way, is for them to elevate to the next level in what it is they're trying to do.
Right.
So if they use it as a stepping stone and they move on somewhere else, that's cool with me. You know, that it was that my thing was able to elevate them and whatever it is that they wanted to do. You know what I'm saying, and put in their movement. So
that's what it's about too. Like, you know, helping people progress.
Right.
So
So that's it. I mean, I can run my mouth all day. I know you got time. Hey, this is what I do. I'm a talk. I used to have a promotion company. It was called Big Mouth Entertainment. You know, who else you want to get the word out? But somebody with a big mouth, right? So, that's what I'm hiring, right? That's what promotions is. So I run my mouth. That's what I do. So give me a mic.
I'm listening to everything you're saying, and like I said, today was a good day for me because I learned a lot from you and Alan and Innocence Project. So I definitely want you to give out like your social media for Black Westchester, and I also want to, before we go, I want to talk about your show, People Before Politics.
So the website, the online magazine came out June 2014. Is blackwestchester.com. You can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Black Westchester or Black Westchester Magazine. So the show we started 4 years ago, August 3rd, 2014, the People Before Politics radio show. It actually was an idea that my friend Damon was doing on Blog Talk Radio for years. It had a name. We decided to keep the same name and do this show. We were a guest. Damon was a guest on somebody else's show. Priscilla Ichi and her friends had a show, and we liked the setup, and we was like, hey, we could do that. And then we started our show. So we just celebrated our 4-year anniversary. This People Before Politics radio show. You can Google it. We're on all the regular social media. And last August, we actually started Black Westchester, the newspaper. It's monthly. We just celebrated the 1-year anniversary. You could blackwestchester.com is the hub for everything. You can go on there and see every we up to episode 185 on the show. You see every one of the episodes on there. You click on the last tab, BW newspaper. You can see all the digital versions of all the issues of the newspaper, and then of course the articles and everything else. Everything. So blackwestchester.com. is the hub, and we just started subscriptions for people that, like, there's a lot of people in Westchester that have moved down south, or people that just want to know what's going on. $25 a year, we mail it to you. So we mail it to your house, the paper. We drop the paper off usually at all the black churches, the libraries, the community centers, sometimes your hair salon, soul food spots, you know, where we be. You know what I'm saying? And it's free. Everybody says, yo, you charge this, you charge that. My thinking is most things that have information for people in the hood, even if you was to charge 50 cents, they don't get the knowledge that you have for them because they can't afford it. Like somebody just, like they might be able to afford that one issue, but just to have a steady, if you want to give the information to the hood, to the people, to the poor, to the voiceless, to the disadvantaged, to whatever you want to have, you want to term that, you got to give it to them free. So we have advertisers, and that's why I tell people it's important to advertise with us, because that helps us keep it free for the community. That helps us get it out, promote those events, show those people them unsung heroes, call out those elected officials that need to be called out. Anybody corruption, we're speaking truth to power. Freedom ain't free. You know what I'm saying? That's like, real talk. Freedom is not free. You have to do something for it. So, I mean, so that's how we do it. And then we have donations. There's people that we have a donate button, bang, they hit that, they put their little $50 or sometimes more, They don't have anything to advertise, but they want to keep us going.
Right.
Or they send us a check. So it's Black Westchester. We've been doing it for 4 years. We speaking truth to power. We're not gonna stop. I feel like I said, my mom passed me the baton, and I'm gonna ride this till the wheels fall off. and it's about leaving a legacy for the next generations. It's about documenting this current time in history. I mean, that's what, like, I mean, a lot of people say a lot of things, but this is what it is. This is what it is for me. It's real serious. You know, it's not just fun to have I do this. I do this 24/7. I don't do anything else. Like, I don't sleep, for real. I nap. Like, for real. Like, I don't sleep, for real. My phone rings. Hey, a dude, last month, a guy in Yonkers got arrested by cops in Yonkers. He was watering his grass. He said they was harassing him. They took him to the hospital and tried to have him admitted. Right? The hospital let him go at 2 o'clock. He Googled what to do when the cops harass you. Black Westchester came up. He was calling me from 2 to 6 in the morning till he got me, dude. Like, I'm real talk. Like, he said he Googled it and this is what came up. You know what I'm saying? So it's like Google just said, call AJ or call Black Westchester. Like, whatever. But dude was calling me from 2-something in the morning until I finally answered at 6. Like, for real. So, people, that's what goes on. So, it is what chose me or whatever. This is the first non-entertainment based project that I've ever worked on. Everything was involved around entertainment. Even when I did news, it was entertainment news. Jay-Z just got arrested, and the court date, DMX got arrested. This one did this. It was news, but it was entertainment news. This is the first non-entertainment thing that and I'm making it up as I go along because there really wasn't no roadmap, there wasn't no blueprint, there wasn't no, we making this up. We made a lot of mistakes in the beginning. Shout to everybody who holds us down, everybody who volunteers, everybody who helps distribute. You see me and Damon, that's the names you see. You see Damon on TV being interviewed. You see me writing is the name of the writer, the editor, the chief cook and bottle washer. But for us to come out every month, there's people that hold us down for the show to keep coming out. There's people like Lorraine Lopez who's watching right now, who's a co-host of the show, who books a lot of the guests, who calls up and harasses people when they don't answer my emails for advertising. No, I need a quote. You know what I'm saying? Like, she gonna get you. Yep. You know what I'm saying? We got Priscilla Ichi, Brenda Crump, Atif Khalil, who's holding us down with Mount Vernon, and various others. There's too many to name, but there's a whole bunch of people behind us that hold us down and make us what we are. And every year I'm trying to take it to the next level and make it bigger and bigger. So, I mean, Black Westchester. At this point, I'm Black West. People sometimes I don't have a name. People are like, yo, Black Westchester. Like, I'm Black Westchester now. Like, so that's what it is. And shout out to my partner Damon K. Jones, for picking me to take this journey with him. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was my dude. He was like, he needed a pin to his movement, and we rocked out together, and for it to be what it is.
It's hard to find people that'll ride with you through stuff too, especially when you have a business, because then people feel after they put in a certain amount of time, well, when you gonna pay me? When is this happening?
Well, it's crazy because I couldn't have did this for him. I had to own some of it. You know what I'm saying? We 50-50 partners. Like, he worked for the county. He got a pension. He good. You know what I'm saying? Black Westchester don't have to make a dime, dude. He good. This is how I eat. You know what I mean? This is what pays the rent. Like, this is what I do. Social media for people. People know I do social media for candidates and corporations or organizations. Either I set it up or I maintain it. You don't know. You think they tweeting, it's not them. You think they putting them pictures on Instagram, it ain't them. But
so it's supposed to look like the clock. Around the clock.
Well, I work until I'm not effective. Especially when I come to the point where I have to do the paper. It's like, yo, I got like 28-page paper. I got maybe 6 pages done right now. You know what I mean? Like, for October. Yeah. But you know what? I go home and I work and work and work, and then when I get tired, I just shut it down, and when I wake back up, I do it again, and then I just knock off little bits and pieces while I can, and what I can, and do what I can, and just rock out. So.
Oh man. Wow.
Black Westchester, the voice of the community, the voice of the voiceless. I mean, thank you for everybody who supports us. Keep the support coming, because that's how we keep it moving. So.
Yes. Oh,
and one thing, if I can announce, we have so we're actually having a fundraiser. Like, I cover everybody else's fundraisers. We're actually having a fundraiser. I believe is October 19th, 18th or 19th. The 18th, I think, is a Thursday. I'm going to announce it on our show. But there's this organization called the Soup Kitchen that feeds the homeless, that feeds a lot of people. Their budget has been cut in the last 2 years They used to get about $50,000 from the county and from the city or whatever. You ain't get. They got cut in half the year before. They got nothing last year. I don't think they got nothing this year. They don't know how they keeping their doors open, and they still rocking out. The lady who runs it, who got a salary, she's a former city councilwoman. She got the equivalent of laid off, and she's been rocking for the last 2-3 months without a salary. So I got, so anyway, we're doing a fundraiser. It's Black Westchester fundraiser for the soup kitchen. I mean, it's to rock out for us, but it's also like 35% of the proceeds or whatever is going to the soup kitchen, so they can continue the work that they do. And we're doing that. I'll announce it on our show. You look at Black Westchester, we'll put it out. But we got that coming out. It's the first thing kind of like that we did, because I rock everybody else's fundraisers. I never had a fundraiser. I never raised money for us. So another group is raising it for us, but I didn't want it to be all about us. I wanted to, while we need the money to stay afloat and to have something in the cushion, but I feel better still, even in that helping an organization that helps people. So I want to be able to bring more attention to them. And like I said, 35% of the proceeds is going to them. So I'll have all the information. You'll be seeing that.
And let me know, and I'll put it on my and I'll promote and share too.
I want to thank you for sharing your space with me. You know how important that is. Like, everybody has their own space, and everybody wants it to be their space. And as people could compare us and say we're competitors because we have two different shows, there would be people who would look at it that way. Nah, I ain't bringing him so he could promote his show on my show. So it has to be said. Thank you for sharing your space.
No, it's my pleasure.
And introducing me to your audience.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
No
and I think that's a powerful thing. And the more we work together on stuff like that, the further we can all get.
Yes.
Because the thing is, like, I own 100% of my thing and you own 100% of your thing, and we never going to work together. But you know what? In working together, what's 100% of nothing? As opposed to 20 or 30% of something that's real successful. You know what I'm saying? We don't get that as people. So I just want to shout y'all out, and I love what y'all are doing, and I've seen some of the old shows, and shout out to everybody who rocks with us. Shout out to everybody who rocks with them, and shout out to the Innocent Project for all that they do, because there's important work. I want to have them on our show too, to continue to blow up, and I want to actually have them on the show and then write about them in the next issue from that interview. So
that's good.
That's it. So I think we're kind of close.
That's why I wanted you on the show, because I was like, I felt you would be like a connection. So because Cruz told me about you, so I was like,
shout out to Cruz and Erica.
Yes. Yes. So I definitely.
Oh, shout out to Dr. Bob. Can't forget about him. Can't forget about him. Not only is he the co-host, not only does he hold me down, but he's my ride to and from the station today. Shout out to Dr. Bob. Yes, baby. Yeah.
So thank you for coming on. I greatly appreciate it.
No
doubt.
I
definitely want to do something with you again. Have you come on?
Nah, we gotta have you come up, but you live far away though. You live, you ain't local.
It could be on like a day where.
Well, we only come on Sunday, so it's just like
Sunday.
Just
let me know.
Yes. So we probably have to plan it 3 and 4 weeks in advance, though. But if you ever even those Black Westchester, we cover everything that has to do with the Black community. So if there's some issues going on in your area and you want to either write about it or whatever, and you want to submit something, I will run that. Because that expands our audience. And
that's why I went to school for journalism.
And then when I come here and I bring a stack, I'll leave a stack that you can take back to Jersey with you, and you can help spread the with your stuff in it. So that's how we grow. That's what's keeping us around.
Definitely, I will do that because I do have a lot of things to talk about.
That's it.
So, talk about and write about. So to everyone that tuned into the Nina Monique show today, thank you so much for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you to the Innocence Project. Thank you to Alan Newton for coming in and sharing his story. Thank you to AJ Woodson. Big shout out to People Before Politics. And everyone, thank you for tuning in. Love y'all. Have a wonderful weekend.
And everybody
Bye.
From our show, because I'm posting this on our site, everybody check out this show every Saturday, 3 to 5.
Every other Saturday.
Oh, okay. Every other Saturday, 3 to 5. Yeah. All my audience needs to check out this show and support this show as well.
Thank you. Thank you.